The nuclear explosion over Nagasaki produced a mushroom cloud that rose more than 11 miles high. The bomb, nicknamed Fat Man, released energy equivalent to 21,000 tons of TNT, destroying most of the city. School children from the Kingston-upon-Thames district of London take part in an evacuation drill while wearing gas masks. Such exercises became routine because of the threat of gas attacks, preparing the population for possible emergencies. Australian radio operator Leonard Sifleet is captured on Aitape Beach, Papua New Guinea, moments before his execution in 1943. The photograph was found on a dead Japanese officer and became stark evidence of the war's brutality. The passengers on this London bus did not reach shelter in time during one of the frequent bombing raids. Indiscriminate air attacks gave residents only seconds to hide, catching many who tried to escape by surprise. In the spring of 1940, Italian soldiers armed with flamethrowers take positions near the Egyptian border. Effective in close combat and sieges, these weapons were used to destroy fortifications and clear difficult terrain. An aerial photograph shows only a small part of the land, sea, and air forces deployed on the 6th of June 1944 in the largest amphibious operation in history, intended to liberate Europe from the Nazis. Allied paratroopers descend over the Netherlands during Operation Market Garden in 1944. The goal was to seize strategic bridges for a rapid advance into Germany, but the ambitious mission turned into one of the Allies' greatest defeats on the Western Front. Several B-24 Liberator bombers attacked Ploiești in Romania, a key oil refining complex that supplied the German army. Dense smoke plumes testify to the success of the strike achieved despite powerful air defenses. A German submarine patrols the waters of the Polar Sea in 1942, operating under extreme cold and isolation. Such boats formed part of the U-boat fleet that inflicted heavy losses on Allied convoys in the Atlantic. 13 Liberty-class transports were scuttled off the Normandy coast in 1944, creating a breakwater to protect landing craft. These ships became part of a prefabricated artificial harbor that ensured the safe unloading of troops and equipment. During the Allied invasion of Sicily, an American supply ship loaded with ammunition was hit by a German bomb and exploded off Gela in July 1943. The tragedy highlighted the dangers facing transports during amphibious operations. The German city of Bocholt is shrouded in thick smoke after a Royal Air Force strike in March 1945. More than 150 tons of bombs were dropped, destroying about 80% of the city and critical Reich infrastructure. Jewish children from the Włocławek ghetto in Poland are deported to the Chełmno extermination camp. Thousands of youngsters were torn from their families and sent into the unknown, marking one of the cruelest chapters of the Holocaust. A French soldier inspects a heap of shoes near the crematorium of the Natzweiler Strothof concentration camp. The only camp on French soil became the site of thousands of deaths before liberation in 1944. American paratroopers leave aircraft over the Netherlands. Despite hopes of rapidly capturing bridges, the Allies met fierce resistance and suffered heavy losses. United States Marines land under fire on Iwo Jima. Around 70,000 Americans fought against 21,000 Japanese defenders. The volcanic terrain and fortifications led to more than 26,000 casualties over 36 days. Crew members abandoned the aircraft carrier USS Lexington after Japanese torpedoes and bombs struck her during the Coral Sea Battle. A nearby destroyer rescued survivors, and USS Phelps scuttled the heavily damaged ship, so the enemy could not capture her. A Russian recruit bids farewell to his family in Bryansk in 1943. During the war, millions of men were mobilized to defend the country. Such partings were filled with emotion and uncertainty. Many knew they might not return from the brutal fighting on the Eastern Front. The battleships West Virginia and Tennessee burn after the Japanese raid on Pearl Harbor. West Virginia took multiple torpedo and bomb hits, while Tennessee, partially shielded, suffered fires that spread from the neighboring ships. Japanese pilots receive instructions before the attack on Pearl Harbor designed to neutralize American forces in the Pacific. The initially successful strike underestimated the U.S. response, which led to the nation's entry into the war and changed world history. Parachute bombs descend on a camouflaged Japanese bomber during a United States 5th Air Force strike on Old Namlea Airfield on Buru Island in 1944. The operation aimed to destroy Japanese aviation in the Netherlands East Indies. Two Light A-20 Havoc bombers operate over Kokos, Indonesia in July 1943, attacking strategic Japanese targets. One aircraft was hit by anti-aircraft fire and crashed into the sea shortly after dropping its bombs. A burial at sea is held aboard the attack transport USS Hansford for a casualty of the Iwo Jima campaign. Such ceremonies honored the fallen while the costly fighting on Pacific Islands continued. A U.S. Navy photographer captures from the air the severely damaged Japanese heavy cruiser of the Mogami class during the Battle of Midway. Armor, decks, and superstructures were reduced to heaps of wreckage. The Japanese aircraft carrier Hiryu performs evasive maneuvers to avoid bombs dropped by U.S. Army B-17 bombers during the Battle of Midway. Despite efforts, later that day, Hiryu was heavily damaged, sealing the defeat of the Japanese fleet. An Allied prisoner of war displays marks of the inhuman conditions of Japanese captivity. After Singapore fell in 1942, about 13,000 British soldiers died from starvation, disease, and abuse during years of imprisonment. Known as the boy from the Warsaw Ghetto, a Jewish child of about 10 is seized by German soldiers after the ghetto uprising in 1943. His image became a symbol of Jewish suffering under the Nazi regime. Hitler's assault detachments link arms to form a barrier denying Jews entry to the University of Vienna. This act, reflecting rising Nazi anti-Semitism, demonstrated the systematic exclusion of Jews from educational institutions and public life. The B-17 bomber Wee Willie lost a wing after an 88mm anti-aircraft shell hit. Unable to stay aloft on one wing, the aircraft crashed during a raid on airfields and ammunition depots north of Berlin. Sikh prisoners of war await execution under brutal Japanese captors. During the war, prisoners were often tortured, forced into hard labor, and murdered, highlighting the cruelty of the Japanese military regime. An aerial photograph of Nagasaki shows the city before and after the atomic bombing. The blast created a fireball 280 meters in diameter, destroying everything within a radius of 2 kilometers, killing at least 74,000 people and injuring thousands. American B-25B bombers lined the deck of the aircraft carrier USS Hornet before the famous Doolittle raid on the 18th of April, 1942. Modified for carrier takeoff, they carried out the first airstrike on Tokyo after Pearl Harbor. A Royal Air Force technician in the Middle East prepares a bomb for a strike on Italian forces during the African campaign. The ordnance, still without its fuse, will be slung under an aircraft to attack strategic targets, playing a vital role in the struggle for regional control. On Kiska Island, after Allied landings in August 1943, a gravestone created by the Japanese Army is found honoring an American pilot. Here sleeps a brave air hero who gave his youth and happiness for his homeland. The Night Witches were Soviet female aviators, a wholly female unit. Flying light, almost silent aircraft, they conducted risky night raids on German positions. From 1942 to 1945, they flew more than 23,000 combat sorties and dropped 3,000 tons of bombs. Women walk among the ruins on the outskirts of Coventry after devastating Luftwaffe raids. The city was subjected to massive attacks that destroyed entire districts, including the famous medieval cathedral. A woman runs for her life while buildings burn in a French town set ablaze by retreating German troops around 1944. Scorched earth tactics left settlements in ruins. In Nazi-occupied Ukraine, a group of Jews is forced to prepare for execution. Estimates suggest more than 1 million Jews were shot in mass killings carried out by Einsatzgruppen and local collaborators. Two Soviet snipers move through snowy terrain near Leningrad in 1943. Wearing camouflage smocks, they eliminated the enemy from long range while defending key positions during one of the longest and most destructive battles of the war. Jewish prisoners stand in formation around 1942. A yellow triangle on clothing marked Jews. A red one indicated political prisoners, green criminals, pink homosexuals, and purple members of persecuted religious groups. A building collapses amid the Blitz bombings. During 8 months of raids, more than 1 million London homes were destroyed or damaged. The city endured up to 200 air attacks in a night, forcing thousands to shelter in underground tunnels and the subway. Nummer 1. Defendants laugh during the Nuremberg trials held after the war. The tribunal judged Nazi leaders for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Of 24 main defendants, 12 were sentenced to death. The rest received prison terms or were acquitted. A London newsboy holds a placard announcing the start of the war. Germany's attack on Poland triggered Britain's response, leading to a declaration of war and the rapid spread of conflict across Europe. In occupied Kau in late 1939, Jews are forced to occupy the rear platforms of trams. Bilingual German and Polish signs separated Jews and non-Jews, reflecting daily oppression in the first months of Poland's occupation. Prisoners line up for roll call in the Buchenwald concentration camp. More than 250,000 people passed through, subjected to forced labor, starvation, and brutality. Despite conditions, resistance groups operated within the camp. A kamikaze strike scar remains on the cruiser HMS Sussex in 1945. Japanese pilots, revered as martyrs, carried out deadly attacks, sacrificing themselves to defend their homeland. On Amsterdam's Dam Square, on the 7th of May 1945, civilians duck for cover from German naval gunfire, just 2 days after Nazi capitulation. Up to 32 people died during the victory celebrations. 4-year-old Istvan Reiner smiles in a photograph taken shortly before his deportation to Auschwitz. More than 230,000 Jewish children were sent there, and only a few survived. A moment after a Japanese kamikaze crashed into the deck of the aircraft carrier USS Saratoga. The attack caused serious damage and claimed crew lives, demonstrating the desperate tactics of the Pacific War's final months. German soldiers attack a Russian bunker in 1941 during Operation Barbarossa. More than 3 million troops took part, capturing about 5 million Soviet servicemen in the first months and causing huge losses on both sides. Citizens of the Netherlands waved to British Avro Lancaster bombers in 1945. During Operation Mana, crews dropped food to the starving population, saving thousands of lives in the war's final months. Waffen. SS soldiers carry artillery shells in the war's closing years. Known for loyalty to the Nazi regime, they fought the fiercest battles trying to hold back the Allies and the Soviet Army. Concentration camp prisoners liberated in May 1945 display severe emaciation. Despite freedom, physical and emotional recovery was a monumental challenge after the horrors endured. Royal Air Force bombers attacked German ships off Heligoland in December 1939. Although damage was limited, these raids marked the beginning of Britain's air campaign against Axis forces. United States Marines used flamethrowers on Iwo Jima in February 1945. Jets of flame longer than 65 feet helped destroy bunkers and tunnels forming the island's defense network. Anti-aircraft shells trace the sky, while USS Arizona burns at Pearl Harbor on the 7th of December, 1941. The attack destroyed 19 ships, including 8 battleships, and killed more than 2,400 people, drawing the United States into the World War. United States Marines shelter behind a rock while blasting a cave linked to a Japanese bunker on Iwo Jima. An extensive tunnel network made fighting on the island exceptionally hard and dangerous. In Montélimar, France, a woman's head is shaved for collaboration with German soldiers. After the Nazis left, about 20,000 French women experienced similar public humiliations, reflecting a post-war thirst for retribution. In 1939, Adolf Hitler at the Kroll Opera House justifies the invasion of Poland, alleging provocations against ethnic Germans and demanding the so-called Polish Corridor and Danzig as stolen territories. A German officer instructs a young Volkssturm member in using anti-tank weapons. This militia corps mobilized civilians and teenagers in the war's final months, throwing them against Allied troops with minimal training and improvised arms. Chinese soldiers operate a sound locator, directing 3-inch anti-aircraft guns in Chongqing. These devices help detect Japanese planes during bombings aimed at undermining the Chinese government in the Second Sino-Japanese War. A British cruiser tank is unloaded in an Egyptian port in November 1940. It was part of a large shipment reinforcing North African troops before clashes with Rommel's Afrika Korps and the Italians. American landing craft head for Leyte's beaches in October 1944, while United States and Japanese aircraft battle overhead. This landing opened the Allied campaign to liberate the Philippines. Devastation. After American bombings of Tokyo is clearly visible, the March 1945 raid involving 279 B-29 and more than 1,500 tons of incendiaries destroyed half the city and took about 100,000 lives. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS and Gestapo, visits a camp near Minsk where his gaze meets a young Soviet prisoner. The photo became a symbol of courage in the face of tyranny. Prisoners celebrate the liberation of Dachau in 1945. Opened in 1933, the camp held more than 200,000 inmates, political, Jewish, and other persecuted groups. Hiroshima. Survivor Jinpei Teramai shows scars that changed his life. The atomic bombs left thousands with severe burns, underscoring the destructive power of radiation. Ukrainian citizens are forced to clear rubble and rebuild Kharkiv after the Nazis retook it in March 1943. The city changed hands 5 times, enduring cycles of destruction and restoration. Vidkun Quisling inspects a mass grave in the Trandum forest near Oslo in June 1945. German authorities executed resistance members there. For collaboration, Quisling was executed in October that year. In 1933, Nazis burn books by Karl Marx, Sigmund Freud, and other subversive authors in Berlin. It was an act of cultural suppression and destruction of dissent. Pedestrians look at a Jewish shop in Berlin destroyed during Kristallnacht. On the 10th of November, 1938, Nazis smashed thousands of businesses, burned synagogues, and arrested about 30,000 Jews. A woman faces her last moments in the Belzec death camp. Between 1942 and 43 hundreds of thousands of Jews were killed there as part of the extermination campaign. The wreckage of a children's orphanage after bombing reveals the war's cruelty. Destroyed beds and scattered toys show how violence traumatized the most vulnerable. The Dutch pray in memory of the victims of Nazism, honoring the millions who endured persecution and death. Such moments helped preserve collective strength after the tragedies of occupation. After night blitz raids, residents' furniture and belongings are piled on London streets. Destroyed homes forced thousands to start anew while the city stood firm under Luftwaffe blows. In September 1940, King George VI, Queen Elizabeth, and Winston Churchill inspect damage to Buckingham Palace. The hit on a monarchy symbol united Londoners in the face of the Blitz. In October 1940, London underground tunnels and stations become shelters. Thousands sleep on mattresses underground, enduring nights under the roar of explosions. 12-year-old Kazimira seeks comfort after her sister died in the Warsaw bombing. Not understanding why her sister does not answer, the girl faces loss shared by many children of war. British and American troops surround a surrendered German tanker during the El Alamein campaign in October 1942. After Buchenwald's liberation in April 1945, a man holds the noose used to hang prisoners. The camp became the site of thousands of deaths through hangings, starvation, and forced labor. United States infantrymen move through the ruins of Waldenburg in April 1945. Already destroyed, the town became the scene of fierce fighting in the war's final weeks. A Russian soldier hides in a trench while a T-34 tank passes overhead during the Battle of Kursk. The fight, the largest tank battle in history, buried Germany's last major offensive hope in the east. A German soldier shares rations with a Russian prisoner and his hungry daughter, a rare act of humanity amid the war's horror. The shadow left by a person at the moment the little boy bomb exploded in Hiroshima. Intense thermal radiation scorched surfaces, preserving silhouettes where bodies blocked the light. American Marines advanced through ruins during the Battle of Tarawa in November 1943. Smoke rises from a bombed oil dump in the background. One of the Pacific's bloodiest battles, it cost more than 6,000 lives in just 3 days. Families of Japanese descent are sent to internment camps in the United States. About 120,000 people were forced to leave homes and businesses, living under supervision because of mistrust after Pearl Harbor. Posters like this promoted food rationing under the slogan, "Food is a weapon," highlighting the importance of avoiding waste. Responsible consumption supported the war effort, ensuring supplies for troops and allies at the front. More than 300 Allied soldiers were shot by German troops during the Battle of the Bulge after surrendering. Such executions violated the Geneva Convention banning the killing of prisoners of war, but atrocities were not uncommon. Adolf Hitler awards medals to Hitler Youth members in 1945. Some fighters were younger than 16. They took part in decisive battles like the defense of Berlin with improvised weapons in a desperate attempt to hold the capital. German soldiers march along the Champs-Élysées in Paris in 1940 after France's fall. The occupation was marked by strict control, mass arrests, and collaboration by part of the local population. An exhausted American Marine sits amid ruins after the Battle of Peleliu in 1944. The brutal fight lasted more than 2 months, and harsh conditions plus fierce resistance caused 12,000 American casualties. Moscow residents listened to the official announcement of war in 1939 after Germany attacked Poland. Soon, Britain and France declared war, beginning a conflict that changed world history. A woman returns to Murmansk after the devastating bombing of the 18th of June, 1942, called the city's worst day. Massive incendiary bombs destroyed much of Murmansk. About 90% of old Nuremberg was destroyed by intense Allied bombings. A symbol city of the Nazi regime, it was heavily targeted for its historical and political significance. Captured Russian soldiers undergo interrogation by Germans. Torture was used to obtain information on Soviet plans, reflecting brutal intelligence methods. A crowd raises arms in Nazi salute during a propaganda rally in Berlin in 1941. Early Nazi success was fueled by promises of economic revival and nationalism. Prisoners in Flossenburg, concentration camp around 1940, are forced into exhausting labor in a granite quarry. Long shifts led to exhaustion, severe injuries, and death. After Allied forces surrendered on the Philippines, 76,000 American and Filipino soldiers marched more than 100 kilometers under scorching sun with no water or food. Thousands died along the way. Though the war was an age of machines, horses still served in the North African campaign. Cavalry provided mobility across desert terrain where vehicles sometimes failed. A South London butcher tears a coupon from a customer's ration book. Strict product control was meant to ensure equal access to basic goods. Japanese civilians flee smoke grenades during the Battle of Saipan in 1944. Many were caught between opposing forces, enduring battle horrors and forced relocation. London blazes in 1941 after intense Luftwaffe raids. Firefighters fought tirelessly while citizens sought shelter. A sign on the fence of St. Peter's School in London announces a parents' meeting on anti-aircraft measures. During the Blitz, schools and communities organized shelters and evacuations to protect children. German soldiers searched Jews in September 1939, shortly after invading Poland. It marked the beginning of systematic persecution, culminating in the Holocaust. Children from London's East End, left homeless after bombings, sit among ruins. During the Blitz, 750,000 capital residents lost their roofs. An exhausted German soldier sits by the burning Reichstag during the Battle of Berlin in 1945. This fight was the war's final point in Europe, turning the city into ruins. Japanese citizens weep as they hear Emperor Hirohito's surrender speech in August 1945. The address marked the end of war in the Pacific. A British soldier trains in 1941, attacking through smoke with a bayonet while wearing a gas mask. Drills simulated chemical warfare, a danger remembered from the First World War. On the Rock of Gibraltar, a colony of Barbary macaques is carefully watched because of a legend. If the monkeys leave, Gibraltar will cease to be British. Winston Churchill, known for superstitions, ordered extra primates brought in to maintain numbers and morale in the strategic colony. New addresses of homeless residents are chalked on the walls of destroyed homes in Germany in 1944. This improvised practice helped loved ones find each other amid rubble when whole districts became piles of bricks after air raids. German soldiers march along Avenue des Champs-Élysées in Paris in 1940, soon after France's capitulation. The occupation marked a grim period of strict control, mass arrests, and some local collaboration with the regime. Chinese soldiers marched to the Salween front during the Burmese campaign in 1943. Their task was to break the Japanese blockade and restore the Burma Road, vital for Allied aid to China. An American soldier captures a German officer in September 1944 during the Allied advance through Western Europe. Many towns were liberated that month, and Allied troops reached the Rhine. Poles wander among Warsaw's ruins after the devastating siege of 1939. Weeks of German attacks turned the city into rubble, killing thousands and forcing Poland to capitulate. About 85% of urban infrastructure was destroyed. A German army column crawls through mud in the Nevel region of the Soviet Union in autumn 1943. Deep Rasputitsa delayed troops and equipment, complicating combat on one of the war's harshest fronts. Japanese soldiers are led to a camp after the Battle of Okinawa in 1945, About 7,400 surrendered. An unusually large number, as capitulation was considered shameful. In autumn 1942, Soviet fighters advanced through Stalingrad's ruins, fighting for every block. More than 2 million soldiers clashed in one of the bloodiest battles, which marked the start of the German retreat on the Eastern Front. In winter 1942, Leningrad residents collect water from a burst pipe during the nearly 900-day siege. Surrounded by Wehrmacht forces, they endured hunger, cold, and bombings. More than 1 million people died. The village of Lidis in Czechoslovakia was obliterated in retaliation for Reinhard Heydrich's assassination, one of the Holocaust's architects. By Hitler's order, all men were shot, and women and children faced tragic fates. After a thaw, German soldiers waded through icy water in Russia. The snow melt caused severe flooding, turning the battlefield into a swamp and slowing equipment movement. An American soldier in a foxhole on the Bataan Peninsula, Philippines, April 1942, holds a Molotov cocktail ready to defend against a Japanese tank. Surrounded and exhausted troops relied on improvised weapons in one of the campaign's toughest battles. An Australian light horse detachment on Bren carriers crosses the Egyptian desert in January 1941, preparing to enter the North African campaign against Axis forces. British Hurricane fighters break formation to attack in December 1940 in the Middle East. Maneuverable and reliable, they ensured Allied air superiority against Italian and German planes. SS signalmen mark their boats with swastikas to avoid friendly fire from their own aircraft while crossing the Corinth Gulf in Greece, a part of the German Balkan offensive. From the roof of St. Paul's Cathedral in January 1941, the fires of the Great Blitz are visible. Destroyed buildings stretch to the horizon, yet the Statue of Justice on the Old Bailey Tower remains standing. Hollywood star Jimmy Stewart is sworn in as a second lieutenant of the United States Army Air Forces at Moffett Field on the 1st of January 1941. He later commanded bombers on the European front. A group of observers atop the Empire State Building takes part in an anti-aircraft test in January 1941 that covered 18,000 square miles of the northeastern United States. The United States Postal Service destroys 17 tons of materials labeled propaganda in San Francisco. Books and pamphlets from Germany, Japan, Italy, and the USSR were burned to prevent foreign influence in the pre-war period. A new wall, 12 to 15 feet high, divides central Warsaw. The Nazis have locked about 500,000 Jews in the ghetto. A German officer lectures children in the Lublin ghetto on the importance of daily washing, while residents suffer from unsanitary conditions and a shortage of water. After 4 days of Japanese bombing of Chongqing on the 10th of August 1940, a young water carrier continues to supply residents, symbolizing civilian resilience. Crew members of the USS Yorktown carefully walk across the listing deck, assessing damage after the Battle of Midway. Despite efforts to save the carrier, she was torpedoed again and sank. A United States P-47 Thunderbolt fighter flies over the ruins of Hitler's Eagle's Nest. Craters around show results of Allied attempts to obliterate Nazi symbols. Retired buses fill Tokyo's streets, turned into temporary housing for homeless Japanese. After wartime destruction, residents used these vehicles as shelters during the post-war housing crisis. An Italian woman kisses the hand of a United States Fifth Army soldier in Naples on the 10th of October, 1943, a sign of gratitude for liberation from the Nazis. A B-24 Liberator bomber flies over Cologne's ruins. The cathedral, though damaged, still stands among devastation. Allied raids destroyed more than 90% of the city. The damaged Hohenzollern Bridge is visible in the background. From a hilltop, two French children watch Allied columns move toward Saint-Lô in July 1944. Almost completely destroyed, the town became a symbol of Normandy's devastation. A German soldier puts on improvised straw overshoes and wraps himself in a heavy cloak to survive the winter cold of Stalingrad. Poorly prepared for frost, Wehrmacht troops invented ways to avoid freezing. Workers repair telephone lines on Kranenburg's main road in February 1945, standing in water 5 feet deep. The flooding was caused by deliberate demolition of dikes by retreating Germans to delay the Allies. A sequence of frames shows a 16-year-old German soldier captured by Americans in 1945. Shock, despair, and exhaustion on his face reflect the fate of inexperienced recruits in the war's last months. In 1945, American troops advance through Münster's streets while buildings burn. The operation was part of the final assault on Germany. A Japanese kamikaze, already smoking after anti-aircraft hits, banks toward the aircraft carrier USS Essex on the 25th of November 1944, a desperate tactic of the war's last months. The silhouette of the Palace of Westminster stands against the glow of bombings during the Blitz. Night raids struck Britain's symbols, yet Parliament continued to work. A United States Marine peers over the rim of a crater in the ruined Nago Theater, Okinawa. American bombings turned a city of 443,000 into ruins. German infantrymen hide in a house in southern Italy, ready to open fire after a Stuka dive bomber strike. The combination of aviation and ambushes aimed to slow the Allied advance. Soldiers of the British Expeditionary Force watched German bombings from the deck of a ship during Operation Dynamo in 1940. Despite attacks, hundreds of thousands of troops were rescued. A British ship pulls soldiers from the water after a landing craft sank off Dunkirk. Overloaded vessels sank under air and artillery fire, but sailors persisted in evacuation efforts. Captured Russian soldiers walk with hands raised to the Wehrmacht rear on the 2nd of July 1941. In the first weeks of Operation Barbarossa, hundreds of thousands of troops were taken prisoner. Russian men and women carry belongings from burning homes near Leningrad. Soviet troops themselves set the area alight following a scorched earth policy to deny resources to the Germans. A man holds his son while his exhausted wife rests on the sidewalk after fleeing Minsk on the 9th of August, 1941. The city endured occupation, hunger, and violence. Finnish soldiers capture a Soviet bunker, escorting the surrendered crew during the Continuation War of 1941. Finns sought to regain territory lost to the USSR. A United States Army 105mm howitzer crew fires in the walled forest in 1944, supporting the advance to the Rhine. Canadian troops patrol the ruined Rue Saint-Pierre in July 1944 after driving out the Germans. Canadians proved among the most effective forces in Normandy. During mopping up on Iwo Jima, 3 Japanese soldiers emerged from a hideout and raised their hands. Some chose surrender only when faced with utter hopelessness. A man watches a German raid during an Arsenal versus Carlton Athletic football match in 1940. Sport served as morale support even when bombers roared overhead. The town of Düren lies in ruins after daylight Allied raids in 1945. More than 90% of buildings were destroyed. All 22,000 residents were evacuated in advance. A United States 7th Army soldier fires an M1 mortar along a railway line near Strasbourg in 1944, hitting pinpoint enemy targets. A pile of prosthetic limbs found in Auschwitz after liberation in January 1945 demonstrates the genocide's scale. These items were taken from victims immediately upon arrival. British and French soldiers anxiously await evacuation on Dunkirk's sands. Operation Dynamo used military and civilian vessels to save 338,000 people. TBD-1 torpedo bombers unfold wings on the deck of the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise before attacking Japanese carriers at the start of the Battle of Midway, a key turning point in the Pacific War. Jews are transported in open freight wagons from Warsaw around 1944. Such deportations killed people en route from cold, thirst, and disease. After the Australian corvette HMAS Armidale was torpedoed in 1942, the crew drifted among sharks. A reconnaissance plane photographed and summoned help that saved 49 men, but many perished. American and Filipino soldiers share a foxhole during the Battle of Bataan. Besieged, they fought with dwindling supplies before surrendering and enduring the death march. A makeshift cross marks the grave of an American soldier killed on the 6th of June 1944. Field burials were often made by comrades or locals. Destroyed buildings in Smolensk testify to the brutality of the operation to liberate it in 1943. The hard fights cost hundreds of thousands of lives. After the 1943 uprising, the Warsaw Ghetto was erased. About 300,000 Jews were deported to death camps, leaving scorched blocks behind. Edith Piaf visits a prisoner of war camp in 1943. She is believed to have secretly passed forged documents during concerts, helping captives escape. The 6th century monastery of Monte Cassino lies in ruins after one of Italy's bloodiest campaigns, where Allies stormed the Gustav Line. American prisoners of war carry wounded and sick during the Bataan Death March, a path more than 100 kilometers long in heat, without water or food that claimed thousands of lives. A member of the French resistance smiles at a German firing squad. Sabotage and intelligence from the underground seriously weakened occupation forces despite the threat of execution. If these photos amazed you and you enjoyed our episode even a little, please support the video with any comments and by subscribing to the TopFacts channel. We spent a lot of time bringing all these images together. We look forward to seeing you again on the channel with the most incredible compilations of facts and videos from across the internet. Thank you for watching, and right now, check out the previous episodes that have appeared on your screen.